Today we're going to demonstrate the newest feature of the BrickStor SP, Ghost, the global hands-off storage transfer. We're going to see how you can switch to a new storage without having to migrate all the contents, so you can instantly switch over to your new data storage from HPE and get immediate benefits like active defense and user behavior auditing to maximize the ROI on your new storage purchase. So we run the BrickStor SP software on the ProLiant servers, which gives you instant zero trust data security and unified protocol access. So you can access the same files via SMB, NFS, S3, and our new feature, WebDrive. And it all runs on top of HPE Alletra Storage, the MP B10000. So we take a fiber channel or iSCSI LUN from the B10000 and produce Cyberstorage and share out those protocols from the HP ProLiant servers. So before I get into the live demo, I just want to show you the process of how this works. So we're going to be migrating data, in this case, from a Windows file server over SMB. So the first thing we do is we create that new data set on BrickStor. We connect it to the old Windows file server. And the first thing it does is assess the capacity it needs based on how much data is on the source, as well as how many files are on the source. And then we prepare the share on BrickStor by copying all the metadata and permissions from the original Windows file server to the BrickStor. So at this point, we haven't copied over any of the contents, but we have all the metadata. And so now we're ready to cut over. And so we're going to point the users from the old Windows file server to the new share on BrickStor. So we've effectively cut over to the new storage at this point. And all of the access to data is going through BrickStor, which means user behavior, active defense, and everything is in full effect. So you're now at this point getting your full ROI. And this can happen, very quickly because we only had to copy the metadata over. In the meantime, we're in the background copying all the contents of those files over while users are operating on the new share. If a user accesses a file that hasn't been migrated over, that immediately gets prioritized and the file is delivered from the old file server to the user. Any changes in the file are written back down to the BrickStor on the Alletra storage. So basically you can see that as soon as cutover happens, you begin to get the ROI of the new storage. So eventually it completes. We're not too worried about the time because you're able to operate on the BrickStor as soon as cutover occurs. But when it does finish, we verify everything was correctly migrated and there's a full audit report of what happened. All right, so let's see it in action. So to demonstrate Ghost, the first thing we're going to do is going to create the data set on the BrickStor. So we're going to call this ops. We're going to enable data set encryption. And now we're going to point it to the source server, which in this case is a Windows file share. And we're going to set the number of concurrent transfers to 100, which sets how many concurrent files we'll be replicating in the end. It's going to go out to that share. It pulled the share permissions from that share on the Windows file share. And now we're going to skip to the confirmation and create the share. So now it's created the share and it's assessed the number of files and capacity on that share. So we can see there's 20 gigs of data and 1,863 files. So the next step is to prepare the destination on the BrickStor for that. And this is actually going to go out and start copying all the metadata over to the new BrickStor share. So if I enable this, I can actually go to that on the share. So we're going to go to 10.2.19.1 over here, and we're going to go to that hidden op share. And so we can see those shares here, and we've already copied over the metadata to this share. So if we actually go to the original Windows source, that 10.2.19.4, we actually see that ops folder here show up, and we can see that we see a matching set of things here. And we can, at this point, test even things like permissions and things like that. We can go into here. We can actually look at an image right here, and it'll actually go and pull that image off the source share, which is the Windows file server, and open that up here so that we can see that. So we can validate before cutover that things work as expected. So now we're ready to cut over. So at this point, we're basically monitoring for changes. So if anyone's making changes on the source side, we'll know. So if there's a lot of change, we could wait. But at this point, it's ready to cut over. So we cut this over. And now basically we unhide that share and create the share for everybody. We basically say we're transitioning the source share to read-only. People are now going to be operating off of the BrickStor as their primary share. So we're pointing all the users at this point over to the new share on the BrickStor. So this is the cutover. And once we do this, now that share on the BrickStor is actually visible to everyone. So we can go right into that, and we go to ops. And so now at this point, it's a live and active share. We're able to go and see those same videos and images like we saw before. And now users are actually operating on this share and data is coming over. But if we go back to this share over here, we see that we're transferring data. So we can see how many files we've migrated and how much data in terms of gigabytes we've migrated to the share. It doesn't matter though how fast this happens, because what's happening is if somebody opens a file that hasn't been migrated yet, it's immediately prioritized and brought over to service the user's request. And we can actually see the 100 concurrent transfers going on here, right here. So this is going to finalize in just a few moments as well. So now the data migration is completed. It's verified that everything is over from the source to the destination, and we're now ready to complete this. We can also review the audit log if we want to do that. But now it disconnects from the source share, and now this is the active file share since cutover. So you can continue operating. Basically, once we cut over, users begin operating from the BrickStor. So you're able to immediately gain the protections of BrickStor as soon as you do cut over. And like always, everything is audited. So everyone's user activity and active defense is active as soon as cutover occurs as well.